And what I've done there is I've actually put all the pressure back on the prospects. So the prospects think, oh yeah, this is my problem and these guys are here to solve it. That's the position that you want to be in when you're having that sales conversation. It's very valuable. Hey, Sales Ascender, it is the middle of the week. I hope you're having a wonderful week so far. It is hump day. Happy Wednesday. I'm so excited to be here with you today. Let's just jump right into it because we got another high ticket tuna coming at you so you can get tuned up. By the way, if this brings value to your world, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. Love your face for that one. And Wallace asks this. He says, Sean, how do I bring up the budget if I'm not the one leading the sales call? Oh man, this is a great one, right? So this happens to do when you're probably putting a deal together that's going to involve more than just you and your prospect and the person that you're doing a deal with, where you have to bring in outside other people from your organization or maybe into their organization, and you get into these other multiple conversations before you can actually close the deal. And the secret is we want to, if we haven't set this up yet correctly, we want to make sure that the budget is discussed in probably one of the first or maybe the second discovery calls or the conversations that we have. But if you're in a place where you've already started having negotiations and talking about doing deals and you haven't gotten to the budget step yet, the solution to this one is very simple. When the budget starts to come up or creep in or go into that process, I always revert back to the budget. So what I'm going to do is share a slide with you here that'll make some sense. So here's how to win the budget conversation when you're having it. There's just really 3 steps to it. It's very simple. When you get to the conversation about the budget, right? So you're saying you're talking about somebody and they say, oh man, the budget comes up and maybe it hasn't been discussed previously. So whenever I hear that and I'm that person in that conversation, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually say, hang on a second. So the first move is to fall on your sword. So it sounds like, sorry to get into this conversation now, but I am unaware of if any of the budget stuff was even discussed. So I'd just like to open that and have a quick conversation about, are you guys open to doing that? Get permission to talk about budget. So that's the way to do it. That's called falling on your sword, saying, I just got pulled into this thing. I don't know what's happening. Second step is to then say, listen, based on what I understand, and if you're coming in over the top as a third party, or maybe you're the sales pro and your subject matter experts are talking or whatever have you, you can come over the top and say, listen, I understand that you have this problem. So step 1 is to summarize and review the problem that you're solving for the prospect. It always starts there. So stay there, right? So it's like, hey, so I understand that you're struggling with this particular problem. Tried all these things and it hasn't worked for you. It's really upset you. You spent a lot of money on it and you haven't given up trying to solve. That's why we're talking. I understand that that's the big thing that we're trying to solve. That's step 1. Then you say, could we just chat again, like I said, for a few minutes about the budget? And then when they say yes, you say, well, let me just ask, do you guys have, and this is where the discovery combo starts, step 2, it will be, hey, let me just ask, do you actually have something set aside for budgeting to solve this problem that you actually have? And what I've done there is I've actually put all the pressure back on the prospects. So the prospects think, oh yeah, this is my problem and these guys are here to solve it. That's the position that you want to be in when you're having that sales conversation. It's very valuable. So again, do you have a budget that's been set aside to solve this problem that I know we can solve? And they're going to say yes or no, or I don't know. If they say yes, very simply, the move is, well, could you share with me in round numbers approximately what that is? And then that will give you a very formal idea of how much money they actually have to invest in the product or the service of yours that solves the problem that they have. Secondly, the other parts of the conversation, right? Remember, you got to understand that budget is more than just money. It's time, it's energy, it's blood, sweat, tears, it's money, it's investment of team. And so when we get into what we call the budget conversation, it should literally be about 5 to 10 minutes of your sales conversation. And we review the pains, discuss the budget, then we get into the conversation and we say, hey, could you share in round numbers? If they say no, then we would turn around and say, oh man, well, how do you plan on actually fixing this problem? And let them have that problem. You don't take the problem on as a sales professional. It doesn't make sense to do that, right? And then they'll come up with whatever answer and you can start talking about time, energy, money, team members, and all the other stuff that comes in there. And if they say, I don't know, well, then the idea is let's brainstorm how they could create or come up with a budget that will actually solve the problem. And so we could go down the path of, well, in this particular part of the conversation, if they say, I don't know, when you say, could you share in round numbers how much money you have in order to solve this problem or how much budget you've got? And they say, I don't know. And you say, well, let me just share this with you, Ms. Prospect. Typically, clients come to me. This is called the triplicate of choice. This is the move that we use. So it's like typically clients come to me and I solve this exact problem that you've got. And it ranges anywhere between, say, maybe like $5,000 and $10,000. And then I go up. So it's like you start with like 20% above where your price point is. Then you go up to a fortunate few can actually get involved with our white glove red carpet service, which is actually $15,000 to about $25,000 to actually solve this problem. So I go middle of the road, then I go up to that fortunate few that can afford my done for you service, if that, whatever the price points are. And then you drop all the way back down to the bottom and you say something like, and then for those that are on a fixed or limited budget, we actually have a solution that's going to range anywhere from about $3,000 to $5,000. So now, if as you don't know what it's going to take to solve this problem as prospect, let me just ask you, where do you end up? Like, which bucket would you choose? And then they're going to say either they're in the middle bucket where most of your clients are going to be, they're going to be the fortunate few that can afford your red carpet white glove service, or they're going to be on that limited fixed budget, that lower level tier. And whatever they say, it doesn't matter. You say, oh man, that's a great idea. That's actually the bucket that I thought you were going to be in. And when you share that with them, then they'll say, oh my gosh, this is awesome. And then you say, okay, cool. Well, where's the money going to actually come from so you can actually be able to afford that? Get clarity on this, because when you get clarity on this in the conversation, they'll say, oh, well, I'll just swipe it on a credit card, or I'll just cut a check, or I can break my 401k, or I have the money in cash reserves, or I'm going to get a loan from a friend, or I'm going to get a cosigner on a loan, or I'm going to sell my car, or I went wherever the money comes from, get that down pat, like understand where the money's going to come from, what the plan is, which level they're going to set at, and then move on to, okay, great. So what I hear you saying is you have this problem, you've tried all these things, you spent all this money, and you still haven't been able to solve it. It's really frustrated you. You still wanted to actually get in that. Based on our budget conversation where we just had, you kind of fall in that middle bucket, which I expected you to be there. And the money is actually going to come from you co-signing on a loan with your business partner so you can actually solve the problem. Does this make sense to you? And is this the way that am I missing anything here? And then when I've summarized that whole piece up, boom, now I have the whole budget conversation part of my sales convo completed. And then I can move on to the next stage, which is going to be the buying process and understanding how they actually make decisions. And this is the fast way to do it. But again, if you're in that part of that conversation where you're either just getting into the budget, you can do the same thing. Or if you're getting dragged into a meeting, and again, answering Wallace's question here, he says, how do I bring up the budget if I'm not the one leading the sales call? Then you simply just reset the whole part of that conversation saying, hey, look, I just got dragged in here. I don't quite understand everything, but this is the problem. I know what you're trying to solve. Is this accurate? Yes. Okay. Could we talk about the budget it's going to take to solve this? Yes. Do you have something set aside in order to fund this? Yes, no, or I don't know. And then we just went through those. If you missed that, go back and rewind this thing and listen to it, because that will give you the way to navigate through the budget conversation. And by the end of this, you're going to have a nice little package, and you'll know exactly that your client A has a way to afford it. B, you know the product you're going to sell to them. And C, you have a plan of execution. What does this do? In the long run, what it does is it shortens your sales cycle, and it'll probably shorten your sales process. Because let's be real, talking about money can be pretty hard, right? Like a lot of people don't talk about money. That's why I'm even covering this topic with you, because money, budget of time, energy, money, sweat, blood, tears, like a lot of the time it's not just money. A lot of the time is like if you're doing kind of a done with you service, it's a, hey, not only are you going to have to invest some cash flow, but I need to understand that you have some blocks on your calendar where you can actually commit to making this thing happen. So let's talk about your calendar really quick, and then we'll get into the budget. That's kind of that discovery budget conversation. Step 2, again, on this chart, if you look at it here, is that discovery convo. So depending on whatever product or service that you're selling, you need to understand, like, it's going to take time from them. It's going to take money from them. It's going to take comprehension and knowledge and understanding. Maybe you have to read a book, like whatever that is, have that conversation during your sales combo, and just make sure that you wrap up the budget in a nice, neat piece. And what I can tell you is talking about money is so valuable, and it's one skill that all it takes is a little bit of practice. The first couple of times when you go and try to do this, the hair is going to stand up on the back of your neck. You're going to say, oh my God, this feels so awkward. I don't want to talk about money right now. But Sean, my little sales coach, sitting on your shoulder, here I am sitting on your shoulder, speaking into your ear, saying, listen, have the conversation, understand where the money in the budget is going to come from in order for them to solve their problem. And when you do that, man, You just got tuned up. That's what I got to say today. I just really appreciate you showing up every single each day. So go fight, win. That's what we do. Let's ascend. Let's prospect. Let's ascend. Let's close deals. Let's ascend. Keep being a sales ascender.